Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always, Poppin' Rick.
What's up?
Today we have Week 6 buys and sells. As we are, I would say, more than halfway to the trade deadline. What is it?
My
usually
gosh.
Week 10? Week 11?
Oh my gosh, yeah, we are.
So,
When is the NFL trade deadline? Isn't it week 6 or 7?
Yeah, that's kind of dumb. Like, I feel like they should extend it.
Yeah, that is really dumb,
I'm like,
but
what are
it's
we
coming
doing?
up, dude. That's how. I hate that.
That's why they're starting to talk about it. Trade Nelson Aguilar. I'm going to start a petition and pick it outside of Gillette Stadium every day.
Yeah, I agree.
Trade
Even if
Nelson
it's for a
Aguilar.
conditional 7th.
Yeah.
Dude, it's just so weird that we're already. Our next podcast will be for week 7. Think about that.
It goes too fast. I mean,
Yeah.
it's on the bright side, football doesn't end until February, so that's a long ways off.
That's true.
But anyway, we're going to
Fantasy ends though in what, December?
Yeah, sadness. Week 6 buys and sells, though. Before we jump into that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're listening on Apple, wow. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below. I don't know why my brain read the sentence above. I don't know. But anyway, it's time to talk trades. Time to talk trades in fantasy football. I don't know of a single team that I've ever had that does not look completely different by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like, if your team looks the same as it did week 1 by week 15, you are in trouble. Most of the
Right. Your
time.
team looks way different than it did even just like 3 days ago.
24 hours ago.
Yeah.
So, I blew it up. I told the
I like
guys-
it though. I like what you did.
I told the guys, I said, I'm done. I wish I could start Derek Carr this week. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should wish that.
Oh wow, you're catching your opponent on a good week too. A lot of buys.
After
I will say, I'm looking at your team right now.
Okay.
You got Commanders defense against the Bears, which is pre-recorded, so the game already happened.
Oh, don't worry about Justin Fields. He's just a placeholder for points.
Okay, all right.
I
So you're
wanna see
not
my
actually starting
projections. Yeah, I'm not starting Fields.
Fields. Okay.
Probably not. Unless my brain implodes and I'm like, I just want to have fun.
But you can't if you decide to start Fields, then you got to get a different defense.
Yeah, 1,000%. I
As
mean,
long as you know
I could hope Justin Fields rushes for 200 yards.
True.
That's
true.
That would be all right. But anyway, so you got to make moves, you got to make trades in order to improve your team, especially if your team is not looking too good and you're losing games. You can't give up, even if you're 0-5. You just got to keep churning.
Yeah.
Rick was convinced he was going to be 1-4 this week, and he ended up being 2-3 in the home league. So saved your season there.
I know.
But
Thanks
anyway.
to Darren Waller and T. Higgins not playing.
That's true. But we do have 3 buys, 3 sells for this show. We're going to give you guys that you should purchase, go out and get in trades, and some guys that you should sell in trades before the going gets too low. Okay. So we'll start with the buys. Number 1, hit us off, Rick. Let us know what the number 1 guy is.
The number 1 buy of the week is Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
If you weren't able to pick him up in the waiver wire, like
Kenneth.
us, unfortunately, even though we lost in a league and we thought we were going to get him,
Yeah.
because that team kind of sucks. We didn't get him, so that stinks. But don't leave your head down. You could still trade for him. I think there are teams that would be willing to trade him away, especially if they can get a good package for him. Like if I picked him up in a league, if someone sent me a really good deal, I would still be willing to deal him. And I think there's a lot of people who like Kenneth Walker, but don't realize the kind of potential and upside he has.
Yeah.
He's got much more upside than Penny did in that offense for a couple of reasons. One, there's going to be nobody kind of staring him down in that behind him. Yeah, DJ Dallas, who's probably going to get like 5 touches a game.
Yeah.
With Penny, we were looking at Walker as somebody who is going to be at least getting probably like 35 to 40% snap percentage. I don't know if DJ Dallas does that. I think DJ Dallas will play and probably maybe have like a slight third down role or change of pace, but he's not going to take much away from Kenneth Walker. So Walker is going to be the full workhorse in that backfield. And Walker is a very talented player. He was your RB1 coming out of this draft. A lot of people agreed with that. He was almost the first round pick. So he's got the talent. He's got a pretty easy schedule. He's got the Cardinals twice in the next 4 weeks. The Chargers isn't bad. The Giants aren't too awful. Tampa's a tough matchup. But then after that, he's got the Raiders, the Rams, Panthers. So some good matchups in there. And rest of season, I'm curious to hear where you would have him. I've heard people go as high as top 15. I would not go that far. But I do think he is, I don't know. I was going to give you a player like David Montgomery or Kenneth Walker rest of the season.
Kenneth Walker, probably.
Yeah. Here's a tough one. James Conner or Kenneth Walker rest of the season?
Oh,
although Conner hasn't been good, but
Kenneth Walker.
Yeah. I mean, so it sounds like he's probably a top 20 back for you rest of the season.
Yeah, to me, he's somewhere in the vicinity of like 25 and 20, somewhere around there. Like I would take J.K. Dobbins over him. I'd probably take Clyde over him. Kareem.
You would take Clyde. I don't know if I would take Clyde.
Ramondre, Miles Sanders, guys like that.
You would take Ramondre over him rest of the season?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would. Because how long is Harris out? I think he's only out like 2 weeks.
Ankle injury, though. That's hard to come back from.
I think it's a hamstring.
Is it a hamstring?
Yeah, I thought it was a hamstring.
Ankle injury. Anyway. No. I mean, like 20 to 25 is usually, is pretty safe. But I think the big thing for me with Kenneth Walker is that, like, there was 50% of you that didn't have to pick him up off the waiver wire because you already had him.
Yep.
So that means in 50% of the leagues that he wasn't available, you have the opportunity to make a trade. So we wanted to put him on the waiver wire show because we're like, hey, you need to get this guy all your waiver budget. It's so funny. I said literally everything. And then I looked at 9 other fantasy football accounts that I follow, and they all said the same thing. So I was like, okay, we're in the mainstream, I guess. But, Walker was a good waiver wire pickup, and for leagues that, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to pick him up, is a good opportunity to try to trade for him. But the weird thing is the value. Like, some people are going to get overzealous and offer a lot in a trade because they think this is going to be good. I'm still of the mind that Seattle blows. Like, that they're not, like, they've been good offensively. Like, Lockett's outperforming. Like, DK's outperforming. Gino's outperforming. Like, everyone's playing really, really well. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how long that can last.
I think at least their offense, though, seems to be good.
Yeah.
Their team might not be, but their offense is.
I think their offense could be okay. Like, I think they're a middle-of-the-pack offense at this point.
Yep.
And, like, I don't think they're going to play at the level they have been. So I think there's going to be some regression coming in the middle of the season. Because once people start figuring out Geno Smith a little bit, which I don't think would be that hard to do, or they start losing games and confidence starts going by the wayside for them, like, things will start going downhill. And then there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for Kenneth Walker to do good things. So to me, I think Kenneth Walker's a great buy. Literally, the dude, like, came in. I don't know if Penny was hurt yet or not, but he had that, like, 60-yard touchdown run. And it was almost instant that Kenneth Walker made an impact. And, like, when people do that, that kind of stuff is, like, especially when they were drafted to be, like, a number 1 running back and they have the talent and everyone sees the talent. Like, when you do that kind of thing, it shows people, like, hey, this guy's legit. He's the real deal. And I think Kenneth Walker is headed in that direction. He's definitely, like, right now, he's a little bit, like, people are going to start at least safe and be like, okay, it's the Seattle Seahawks. Like, we know their offense is realistically not going to be amazing. And with that being said, Kenneth Walker being the running back would lend to mean that he's not going to score a whole ton of fantasy points. But you could say the same thing about Houston, Dameon Pierce. You could say the same thing about the New York Jets with Breece Hall. So, like, to me, I think Kenneth Walker is among that group where you're going to start to see this guy explode and expand as the season goes along. It went from Pierce and Breece Hall being in the 20s to now being fringe RB1s at this point. So it's like Walker, I think, can take that leap, which is a great buy opportunity because I think, no one knows the value of this kid. Like, a guy gets hurt and now you're like, oh, what do I do? You go get Kenneth Walker. Make a trade.
Yep.
So anyway, I think this is one of the biggest buys of the year. You got to go out and get him.
For sure. Side note, should we try to trade for him in the league that we co-own that we didn't pick him up in?
No, because they picked him up and they're probably all sweaty. I'm still going to complain.
We can try. I'm willing to try.
Go ahead and try. I'm going to complain still.
Okay. Well, the more you complain, the less likely we'll be able to make trades with anybody.
Yeah, that's true. Number 2 on the buys list is Travis Etienne, and I'll just ramble for a couple minutes because I'm an Etienne manager in many leagues. James Robinson blows.
Okay, well,
that's how you get 1,700 people to click on your video. I don't actually like James Robinson's good. He's a good plotter. He's a good little little guy to use. Run up the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Achilles injury is starting to come back and become like the first couple weeks of the season. I don't think people thought that Robinson was going to be an issue. And he started to slow down significantly. We talked about last week on this same show last week, saying that James Robinson was a sell because the efficiency was decreasing on a week-to-week basis, right? And it continued this week to the point where it was really bad. And it was almost like a stark contrast between him and Travis Etienne, who was on the field 53% of the snaps. But he had in the first quarter, he had 3 runs of 20-plus yards or more. Or 3 opportunities, I should say, because one of them was a catch. But 3 big plays. And you saw the explosiveness of Travis Etienne in that offense. They've been giving him more and more work. They've been giving him more and more opportunity share. And as the weeks go along, Etienne has been getting essentially the role, is starting to formulate into the role that we wanted him to have to start the season, thinking that James Robinson was going to be out. And as he learns, as he grows, and as he becomes better, I think there's going to be more, obviously there's things that he does that's like, oh God, why did you do that?
Yeah.
But he's young and he's raw and he's growing, but he's explosive and it's clear that he's one of their best weapons. And so there's a situation right now where maybe the ETN person that, the person who has ETN on their team is like, he's not producing, he's not doing his thing. And they thought he was. Now's the opportunity to go take advantage of that. Buy Travis Etienne and get him on your team, because at some point he's going to take over this backfield. And when that happens, he's probably going to be, a top 15, top 20 running back, similar, probably in the same range, I would say, as like a Dameon Pierce or a Kenneth Walker once he starts getting into the groove. So it's like ETN, I think, a really good running back. RB1 aspirations are probably gone, I would say.
Yep, that's it is.
I hope. Hey, James Robinson gets hurt, maybe. But ETN, good pass catching opportunity, good rushing opportunity, has a lot of explosiveness, can have a big week at any moment. I think this is a great player to get, and I think you should get him now before he does have that big week and just becomes unviable.
Yeah, I think he's a good buy as well. And, you're right. I think he's capable of having big weeks. He's just that kind of explosive player. Mm-hmm. I do think, the expectations that we had for him in the offseason are gone, and the people who drafted him expecting maybe RB1 potential, that's probably gone as well. But for most people that have ETN, that's been gone, right? So like their view of Travis Etienne is a lot lower than that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are viewing him as probably a mid to low end RB3 at this point. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good value to trade for. You won't have to give up too much to get him. And I think he will end up being an RB2 when the season is done. So he's going to get better. He's clearly gotten better. He's gotten more snaps, gotten more touches. I think it will continue. It's a 50-50 split still. It has been for most of the season, but now it seemed like Robinson was getting slightly more of the work, and now it's kind of flip-flopping where ETN is getting slightly more of the work. His schedule's not that hard either. So it's a good buy, and it's not somebody that you're going to have to give up too much for.
Yeah.
He's another guy in the league that we co-own. If we're unable to get Kenneth Walker, I think we're going to have to send some offers for ETN.
For ETN, yeah. Number 3, Michael Pittman. If you have Pittman, hold him. Oh, it's so hard. You're like, I should trade him. No, they'll hold Michael Pittman. I think there are better days ahead for, like, I've talked about how I think the Colts suck, but I think there's better days ahead for the Colts offense. And I don't think they're as bad as what they've been putting on the field. I would hope. Mm-hmm. But Michael Pittman when he's playing, he's getting targeted. The 4 games that he's played, he's had 13, 9, 6, and 8 targets. 13, 9, and 8 targets. Just think about that. 13, 9, 8 targets. It's a lot of targets.
13, 9, 8. Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's about 10 targets a game, which is what you want. Like, that puts him on pace for that, like, having 160, 150, 160 target season, and that's what you're looking for from a wide receiver. He's had some disappointing weeks just because, Indy has not had the most efficient-looking offense. They haven't been great to start the season, and he hasn't obviously scored a lot of touchdowns. Week 1, he had 27 fantasy points, 121 yards, a touchdown in that game, obviously, and 9 catches, and so on PPR just went off. But I think as time goes along, he'll get more efficient. He'll score more touchdowns. Things will improve for Michael Pittman. I think he's a low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. But right now, I don't think the person that has him on their team is thinking this guy is that. They might think he's more of like a wide receiver 2, somewhere in this, the range of like a Chris Godwin, for example. Mm-hmm. And you could buy him at that with the potential of him continuing a breakout here where he has a really big season. So we're only 5 weeks in. I think he'll be fine. I think Michael Pittman's a great buy.
Yeah. I haven't really changed my opinion on Pittman, that it's been in the offseason. I loved Michael Pittman. I viewed him as a low-end wide receiver 1, somewhere in that 12, 13 range. I really like 12 to 14, if I remember correctly. But that's still really good, and I don't think people view him as that. He's right now the wide receiver 29. He did miss a game versus Jacksonville in week 2. And then the last couple weeks, he has been okay, but hasn't put up huge numbers. But the thing is, his targets are still pretty good. 13 in week 1, 9 in week 3, 6 in week 4 was the lowest point, but then he came back last week with 8. Just hasn't had a touchdown since week 1. He's still the guy in that offense. If the Colts offense gets any better, which it has not been good at all this year, and I don't think it will be an elite offense by any means.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. I think it's going to get better. Jonathan Taylor comes back. Their schedule is not too difficult. Mm-hmm. You got the Jaguars this week, the Titans next week, Washington the week after that.
Yeah.
Those are 3 pretty easy matchups in a row. I think Pittman can put up low-end wide receiver 1 numbers these next 3 weeks, and by then it'll be too late to buy him. He's a good player, and I think I'd be willing to sell a good amount to get him, and I think he's tradable right now.
Yeah, I agreed. Let's move to our sells and quickly run through those. Number 1 is Ezekiel Elliott. And honestly, at this point, I don't even know, like, he was a 2nd-round pick, so it is what it is, but I'm not even sure what you could necessarily
I think he was a 3rd, right?
Oh, was he a 3rd?
4th? I don't think he was 2nd. I think he was like a late 3rd, too.
No, he was a mid-2nd.
Well, he was on the board in our draft, and you took ETN over him, right?
Yeah. I think. Oh, wait, that was the 3rd round. Yeah. Never mind. Sorry, lied. He's a mid-3rd. But yeah, he's had some tough matchups to start the season. Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, Los Angeles, been pretty good against the run this year. So obviously he's not seen like an easier opponent. Against the Giants and Washington, he put up 14 and 10. So as the schedule eases up a little bit, I think Elliott will probably improve efficiency-wise.
Yeah.
But based on just looking at the first couple games, Week 2, 3.5 yards a carry. Week 4, 2.58 yards a carry. Week 5, 3.5 yards a carry. Like, not, inefficient. Doesn't get any pass catching work. He's getting a big workload, but not converting any of it. And every time they get inside like the 20-yard line, they give Pollard one carry, and he's looking more explosive and gets into the end zone real quick. So I love you, Zeke. I've always loved you. But time to sell. Move on.
Time to. Is the ship sailing?
Yes, the ship has sailed. It's sailing away into the distance, and I think Zeke is. It's time for you to sell Zeke. I don't see much of an upside. Like maybe you can sell the name value and say, you know, oh, it's just because he had a hard schedule earlier in the season, stuff like that, and then try to get a good wide receiver for him or something like that. I do that, but I feel like at this point, it's just the longer you hold on to Zeke, the worse it gets.
Yeah, Zeke or Kenneth Walker rest of the season.
Oh, Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, is it even close?
A little bit closer than I'd like it to be.
I think they're within like 10 spots of each other, but
yeah,
it's still clearly Walker, for me at least. And the thing with Zeke is like, he's still getting a decent amount of work, which I like, but he's getting zero passing game work. And when you're not efficient on the ground and you get zero passing game work, that really does nothing for PPR running backs.
Yeah.
He only has 7 targets on the season through 5 weeks. So like that's really awful.
Yeah.
His schedule, as you said,
really
has been
not
tough.
Good.
So yeah. So I agree with you. I think his efficiency will be better, but if he's not getting any passing game work, you know, he's not going to be the running back you thought when you drafted him and what he's been in years past.
Right.
He'll still have some weeks where you'll like, Zeke is back. Like I could see against the Lions, he gets like 18 points. Everybody rips their pants off.
Naked.
Yeah, and then he struggles next couple weeks after that. So Zeke is what he is at this point in his career.
Yeah.
And I'm a little worried if he still stays inefficient on the ground. I mean, we might see them use Pollard a little bit more, and that would really tank Zeke at that point.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if they would use Pollard more and kind of move on from Zeke. I think they're just gonna hand the ball to him.
I mean, I wouldn't say they would.
Football wise, as a team,
yeah.
Zeke is not bad. Like,
no, he's not.
I mean, he's not been efficient, but he's still a good football player. So like for the team, like in the real life NFL, he's still decent, and Pollard provides a decent break for him. But in fantasy, he just is terrible. Like,
yeah, but I mean, Zeke's not
the way he plays. Like, you have to be like Derrick Henry. You have to get 25 to 30 touches on the ground a game, and
he's not even efficient. Like he's rushing for 3.7 yards a carry.
Yeah, it's not been good. I mean, we saw Joe Mixon do that for years and be fine.
Yeah, that is true. But Joe Mixon has passing work.
Yeah, well, that's the big dilemma with Zeke. Used to have the passing catching work, doesn't have it.
At least a little bit.
At least a little bit. Yeah. There was a year where he caught 90 passes.
Yeah.
Back in the
or 90 targets at least.
Or 90 targets. Yeah. But anyway,
targets. Yeah.
Number 2 on this list, Jeff Wilson Jr. I don't dislike Jeff Wilson. He does his job, and he does it well when he needs to.
Very solid.
He's done very good. Yeah, he had 21 fantasy points even this past week. So he's done a decent job replacing Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell is going to come back, which is going to muddy this backfield. It's going to make it difficult for a guy like Jeff Wilson to have even a fantasy productive role. So at this point, I would sell Jeff Wilson as to an unsuspecting bystander before Elijah Mitchell gets back and just deal him, see what happens.
Yeah, we might be a little early on this one because Mitchell won't be back, I don't think, until week 8.
Which is fine. I would rather sell Jeff Wilson now because
it's
earlier.
Because his value is still higher now.
Yep.
Once you get to like week 8 or 9, the value won't be as high. His value, I think, and the reason why he's on this list is it's at an all-time high. I traded him, I think, like a week or 2 ago, and I wish I held on to him another week because he's been great. Yeah. Since he's taken over the backfield, 12, 10, 13, and 20 fantasy points. He's been double digits every week.
Yeah.
He's RB19 right now on the season, and that's with not even getting a ton of work in week 1. So he's been like a high-end RB2 since the injury. And he's got even Atlanta this week if you want to wait one more week, because I think he'll have a good week. And Kansas City's not awful either. But then you got the Rams, then the bye week, then Elijah Mitchell will be back at least after the bye. And at that point, you got Elijah Mitchell, Tevin Coleman, and Jeff Wilson in the backfield, and it will be super disgusting. You will not want to start Jeff Wilson at that point.
Yeah.
And then he lost all of his value.
Yep.
So the stuff you could get for him right now is like mid-range RB2 value. You can get a really solid wide receiver, a decent tight end, whatever you need, quarterback right now for him. And if you wait too long, a couple weeks,
you get screwed.
You're not going to be able to get anything for him.
Yeah.
You're going to get screwed.
Yeah, fair enough. And the final guy, number 3, I'll let you take the floor, Rick, because you've been itching to sell Tyler Lockett.
I know this is a tough one because he's been so good this year, but I would say Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
And it's like I've been debating about it because
really
everything in my brain. No, I used to remember back in the day. I used to have
a Lockett guy. Yeah, I remember.
But everything in my brain right now is saying that he's the biggest sell.
Yeah. Yep.
And he has been great this year. He has. And I know if he's on your team, you're like, why would I trade him? He's been amazing. Mm-hmm. It's kind of why you would want to trade him because he's been so good.
Yeah.
And I just don't think he continues this. Unless Geno Smith plays like this the whole season. Which, at this point, who knows? Maybe. And I could very well be wrong about this take.
Yeah.
I don't think he will. I think he's going to come back down to earth a little bit. And if he does that, that means Tyler Lockett will 100% come back down to earth. Yeah. Right now, Lockett is the wide receiver 8 in fantasy. And he's got name recognition too. So you give that to a casual fantasy player.
Oh, like, God, they're going to get
wide receiver 8,
sweaty.
Tyler Lockett, boom. Right. I was saying in one league where we could probably get like Dalvin Cook for him if we trade him, just because the league is like, they do things like that all the time. And I'm sure you could be in a league where there's a manager who's sweating for Tyler Lockett and would give you a lot for him.
Yep.
And that's why I'm willing to trade him right now. I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 this year. I just don't. And he's the wide receiver 8 right now. So trade him while he's hot.
Yeah.
It could backfire. This one is one that could backfire, but it's just, to me, it feels like it's a perfect sell.
There's always guys early in the season who come on strong to start and then come back down to earth. And I think the entirety of the Seattle offense, like I said earlier, is gonna hit some form of regression. It's gonna happen. And like Geno, like DK has been good too. And I think honestly it's a good sell spot to get rid of DK as well. If you have a shot. I think I would rather have DK over Tyler Lockett. But I mean, they've been efficient. They're doing things like they did when they had Russ. And so, I mean, it could continue, but I just don't think Geno is Russ. I don't think Geno is OG Russ at all, even though he makes some ridiculous passes at times. I just think that he's not a great quarterback. At some point, it's going to come down to earth. Literally this week in a press conference, Pete Carroll said that Drew Lock is nipping at his heels. And I'm like, so what are you going to do? Put Drew Lock in after Geno's been great? Like, I feel like they're going to screw this up royally. And by the time we hit week 12, we're going to be like, well, wasn't that cute what the Seahawks are doing through 5 weeks?
Right.
So Lockett, good time to sell him now because there's going to be people who there's a value and then there's what a player is actually worth. And I think what Lockett is actually worth is probably like somewhere in the range of wide receiver 3.
Like low end wide receiver 2, high end wide.
You might be able to sell him
like a flex
as a wide let's play the game. You have Lockett, wide receiver 8. Another team has Kenneth Walker. You say, hey, you Lockett for Kenneth Walker.
If I need a running back, I'm doing that trade.
Yeah, instantly.
I'm doing that trade.
So I agree. I agree with Lockett. I definitely think he's a sell. He was always a sell for me, but I was just like, does anybody really want to buy the Seattle offense at this point?
Oh, yeah. I think there are. I mean, the biggest thing for me, though, and I'll give you this stat before we go. Among quarterbacks that are qualified.
Yep.
You know who leads the league in passer rating? Mr. Geno Smith, ahead of Patrick Mahomes, Tua, Josh Allen, and Justin Herbert.
It's just not going to continue.
There's number 1 in the NFL. That will not continue.
Who are they playing this week?
I'm saying that.
Who are they playing this week?
Well, it might continue this week. I think they're playing Atlanta.
Oh my god. Yeah, so maybe it'll continue this week. As soon as they play the 49ers.
They're playing Arizona.
Have they played the 49ers yet?
No. They play them twice at the end of the year.
Okay, so as soon as they play the 49ers, there's going to be like 5 picks for Geno.
Oh no, they did play the 49ers.
Oh no.
And you know what he did in that game?
Oh, was he elite?
6 fantasy points.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, when the schedule gets tougher for Geno, things will... See, that's the thing, is that Lockett's value and Metcalf's value are tied to Geno.
Yeah.
If he's playing well...
exactly. That's exactly my point.
If he's playing well, then they're going to be good. If he's not playing well, then they're not going to be good. And, like before the season started, I said Tua can't hold up two wide receiver ones, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I really don't think Geno Smith can hold up DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like, it's just not going to happen. So either one's going to finish as a wide receiver one, or one of them is, or both of them are going to just crap out, and the Seattle's offense is going to be bad. I don't know why they don't tank. Honestly, you have the bones of a good roster. Just go get like Bryce.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were going to do, but no, they're going to compete. I mean, they're still 2-3. Geno Smith has played this well. The offense has been this good, and they're still 2-3. So
yeah, it's bad. But there you go. Buys and sells for Week 6. Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, Michael Pittman buys. Sells Ezekiel Elliott, Jeff Wilson Jr., Tyler Lockett. We got a lot of good got a lot of good football to watch this weekend. Really excited. New look roster in the home league. Excited to see how it works out. Enjoy your weekend, guys. See you later.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.